I'll watch it afterwards on YouTube or whatever.
Okay.
You take
Okay.
care and
You
thank you.
you too. How is your horse?
Well, she's doing okay. Some days better than others because we've had a lot of rain here,
Okay, you too.
and rain tends to soften her hooves and everything, and then she's limping.
Then she's limping. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I can understand that.
and
Okay.
then she limps in the summertime when it's too dry. So
Yeah.
finding a medium thing for her is difficult, but she's
Yeah.
doing okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, dear. Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye, guys.
Okay, so all right. So okay, so I got the YouTube started. I need to put on a screen share so at least something's being looked at. And then I'm going to talk to everybody here and see who, oh, just a minute here. See who might need some hoof help today. Okay. All right. So okay, so I'm seeing who all's here. Does anybody need hoof help today? Speak up.
Yes, kind of, but I
Okay.
haven't taken any pictures yet of Maggie's right front, but
Okay.
her toe is so stretched forward,
Okay.
and I'm in
Well,
the house.
what I'll probably do is probably help you because you and I talk on Messenger all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll probably help you with that on there. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I want to kind of get with people who I never see who might need some help or want to do. Is there anybody here?
Linda, hello, it's Leah from Spain.
Hi, Leah. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I haven't been able to connect to the chats for a long time because I had to work, but today I'm here.
Oh,
Um,
great.
I would like to see if we could have a look at my colt's feet.
Sure.
I trimmed him on Sunday and just have a look to see what you think about them as I've been trimming him. He's 3 years old now, and I
Okay.
started trimming him when he was 1.5, and he'd been very badly trimmed by before. So
Okay.
I would just like to see if I'm going. They look quite good, but I would like you to give me
Okay.
an opinion. I just sent them to you on the chat, the pictures that I took.
Okay.
Uh,
So are did you put them in Facebook Messenger for me?
in the Facebook Messenger, yes.
Okay. Okay, so is there anybody else that has anything they wanna?
Hola, Leah.
Hola.
Okay, well, if somebody else has something, speak up at some point.
Um, I messaged you some pictures of Dolly's right or left front lateral heel that looks like it's cracking all the way around the buttress.
Okay.
So they're on your messenger from a couple 3 days ago.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
put other people in front of the line because I'm on here all the time.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so Kathy Johnson, how are you doing? Can you hear me? Hello? I'm not sure I know Kathy.
Sorry. Yes.
Oh,
I'm
that's
I'm
okay.
I'm
Hi, Kathy.
hi. I'm relatively new to the group and I've managed to get pictures of my old pony that
Okay.
needs help. So I will be posting those but right now I'm
Okay.
just learning a lot and
Okay.
enjoying it a lot too.
Well, great. Well, I saw your name and I didn't really recognize it, and so I just wanted to say hello to you because I thought maybe you were new.
Yep, that
And
was it.
okay, well, we're sure glad to have you here.
And I'm happy to be here.
Okay. And so if you need anything, just give a holler.
I
And
will.
I
Thank you.
and I also tell people, and when I say squeaky wheel, I mean you got to be a squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the grease because I love to help people, but I'm just this side of having dementia. And so I am very forgetful, uh, just mainly because I got a lot going on and I'm disorganized. So if a person needs help, they may send me pictures, and I may tell them, "Oh, I'll help you tomorrow," and then I'll totally forget, and or just get busy doing something else. So I tell people, I don't mind you like harassing me, you know. If it comes to that, you just like really get on it, you know, and stuff because I love to help people. I want to help you. It's just that I need your help to help you. So just to let everybody know that. Okay. Let's see. And Lynn Loca Locatelli, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. Now you're pretty new too, aren't you?
Well, I was attending hoof chats when I could, and then we get busy with cattle, and that knocks me out of the hoof chat timing.
Okay.
Had a couple of wrecks with the horses and ATVs and all that, so
Uh-huh.
knocked me out too. So I've been around a while, and
Okay.
you and I did a talk, just a private talk one time, and that helped me immensely, and I thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't recognize the last name.
Yeah, there's a lot of letters in it, but
Now, where do you live?
say again.
Where do you live?
Oh, I'm in New Mexico.
Okay. I'm it's kind of coming back to me now.
Yep,
And you live on a ranch.
yep, a big ranch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I love New Mexico. I lived in Albuquerque for a while.
You know,
Back-
it's wonderful, and it kind of has some interesting effects on horses' feet. So
Yeah.
I need to start taking pictures again. I had a little surgery recently, but when I get off the lifting restriction, I'd like to share some pictures with you because the feet have gone back to feral feet, if you will. So
Uh-huh. Good. Well, I'd like to see that. I mean, feral feet can be good and not. You know, I mean, they can go either way sometimes, but anything's better than some of the trims that people are applying these days. And so, yeah, I'd really be interested in seeing their feet.
yeah, and I will get pictures. I was a victim of the barefoot uh,
Yeah.
yeah, deal for a little while, but I could see that chopping the heels wasn't the answer, and then I got completely lost. And
Yeah.
the hoof chat last week was amazing. That really helped me understand the heel binding a lot more.
Oh, great.
So, but learning how to kind of unbind the heel with different hoof conformations, I guess is where I'm at now. I really want to be able to read the hoof and know what it's telling me, and then
Okay.
what to apply. So, yeah,
Okay.
when I get pictures, I think we'll have some learning to do.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and I'm
That'd be
eager-
great. Because, you
eager
know, I learn something every time we do this as well. I learn more, I
well,
see more,
that's the name of the
understand
game.
more.
Yeah, that's what makes this so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like always it's a hoof cast, which I call it hoof cast now, or hoof chat, whatever it is, this thing we're doing here. Um, um, it really a lot of time it is learning in time. You know, we discover things on here. You know, when different people share their hooves and we're analyzing them, and you start seeing things maybe you didn't see before, and or maybe see things in a different light, and it just gets more in depth, you know.
And that's exciting. And you're the only one I know on this whole planet that looks at a very precise level of detail. Other people, they teach and they spew techniques and they have no idea what they're doing. And
I know it's a terrible, horrible thing.
yeah, but they can't even see the detail in their own project, and that's what's scary. I mean, the level of detail that you look at is just truly amazing and unparalleled.
Well,
So
thank you.
I so appreciate that. And
Thank you. And thank you for telling me that. I wish I didn't have to do this.
well,
I believe you me, I would rather do anything else. I wish that this wasn't going on at all. This big deception, you
well,
know.
for the sake of the horse, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's I'm always vexed, you know. My heart is always broken over this and vexed.
But
Um,
I think there's a bigger mission. I mean, if more and more people kind of start to see what you see, even in a tiny little bit of detail, I think that's what's going to ignite the change.
I
You know,
hope so.
slowly, but those who care will get it, and then they won't be able to go back to the old way.
That's right. Well, and what I'm working on now is a full, complete expose on these people that have come up with some of these ideas that are killing horses all over the world right now. I'm just now really, really putting together some real facts in their supposed research that just doesn't add up at all and proves them, you know, um, on Facebook now, you have these different wild horse groups, like you have the Northern Arizona wild horses, and you have the Sandwash Basin wild horses, and I guess there's some other ones. I got to find them. So if you search through those pictures, you find that all them horses have heels and
Mhm.
lots of heel. You know, for some guy to come along and say he was with these horses for 4 years and they have no heels at all, uh something ain't right, you
I-
know.
It's just a demonstration of his ignorance.
Well, yeah, our demonstration is something, that's for sure, you know. And so, but because of that, um many horses are dying, you know. But it ain't just him, it's been happening since the 1700s. Bracy Clark wrote extensively about it. Now, what's interesting is the people that trim the heels out and advocate for that, who have been basically hoodwinked into thinking that, the same they will quote the same guy, you know, but they won't quote where he talks about this frog pressure, how it was in his day killing horses, you know, and stuff like that. So what I really want, I'm really going to try and put something together that will really, 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 really show these errors since the first vet schools right on up through barefoot trimming.
Yep.
You
Good.
know, and now we have the pictures of these horses' feet. And it's amazing the pictures that people are taking. And so one thing I'm going to try and do is get some information together and try and get some of these different wild horse groups on board with me, where first of all, they can take their own pictures. When you take a screenshot of a picture off the internet and you try and enlarge it, you don't get all the detail, but they can take their own pictures and they can enlarge it to get the detail, better detail. And then too, if I could get them on board with and to understand what is going on, why it's so vital to find good pictures of wild horse feet, maybe I could start having them purposely look for shots to be able to take of these horses' feet. You know what I mean? To where, because right now I'm taking pictures that are relatively far away. I'm uh downloading them and then opening them up and enlarging them and zooming in on the feet. And I've got some really good pictures, but if people were purposely going out there to take pictures of these horses' feet like that, that would really help, you know.
Have you reached out to some of those folks who
Uh,
post?
I'm going to here in the next week. Right now, I'm putting a deal together on Mr. Yahoo there that says wild horses have no heels. And I'm going to put a whole thing of pictures of wild horses with heels. Like, what are they deformed? You know, maybe we need to get a GoFundMe going so we can, you know, go out there and trim their feet up or something and take the heels out of them. And just recently, um, see, there's a group. Okay, so there's a page on Facebook, and they had a picture of that one dead wild horse foot that wore its heels out, a rear foot, by the way, that became the poster child for the barefoot movement. And they had a picture of it saying, "How low can you go?" Meaning, you can, I mean, meaning how low can you take those heels? See, now I knew that he thought, well, like in his book, he's got a picture drawn of that one dead wild horse's back foot, and he has, by the heel area, he has 1 centimeter. But it's not even at the heel, it's kind of in front of it. But now that I've seen him on video saying they have no heels, now I understand that they are purposely wanting these horses to walk on their cartilage and bulbs. That is truly what they believe. And so now all of it, is coming full circle and making sense, more sense, more sense. And so this has to be exposed. This has to be stopped. This is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous how people believe, how we're led to just believe stuff that people say. It just amazes me.
People
But
are
anyway.
cheap, that's for sure.
What?
Have you been to any of the Mustang adoption events to
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get good pictures there?
Yeah, well, see, I went to one here about 2 years ago. Yeah, and I got some pictures. And they all had heels, lots of it.
Yeah, that might be an idea for people that live close to the adoption events to cruise
Yeah.
and take some pictures and share them.
Yeah, I wish I could find somebody in California to go to Litchfield, California, and take pictures of the horse's feet there.
Where's Litchfield?
It's Lynchfield. It's kind of up in Northern California. Let me see here. Let me see.
Hey,
Look.
Linda,
Yeah.
the next time when I go to a horse auction, would you like me to take pictures
Oh, yeah.
of the horse's hooves? And if one is a wild horse, take a
Yeah.
picture of that one?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
awesome. That'd be great. Lynchfield, California is where he said he did all his research for 4 years. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking. That's east of Susanville.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to find somebody who could go there.
Hmm.
I'd love to find somebody that could find horse wranglers that used to be there in the 80s to see if they even remember him.
Yeah.
I've been kind of, now there was a guy that probably would have, but when I started thinking of this, I started thinking of maybe I should go, because I've called the BLM there and everything else. There was a guy that had been there for years, a rancher that just recently died, unfortunately, because I thought, well, maybe this guy'd remember him, and I tried to get a hold of him, but he'd passed away and stuff. So I've called different things around there. I called the lady that's in charge of the wild horses there, and they're freaking BLM people are oblivious.
Well, the Vermejo has a wild horse band, Ted Turner's ranch in northern New Mexico, and they're very conservation minded.
Oh, really?
Wildlife minded, and I think the horses are more of a nuisance for them. But
yeah,
it's not a BLM situation at all, and so they might be worth reaching out to. At some point, you probably need a clear mission statement. And a little bit
what
of
is that?
Well,
what is the mission statement here? I wanted to save my horse, and I found out that all you experts have been killing them for the last 250 years. There we go.
They might buy into that.
Yeah.
May very well. I'll make a note of
The
that.
mission statement. I wanted to save my horse.
Yes,
And
yes.
so now here I am. Well, okay. Well, anyway, just some ideas. So, but it was interesting. This Philip Lafosse here. I'm gonna do a screen share here in a second. Let me get something on here. And then we'll get into your horse, Leah. I always like to start out with a little disgusting equine hoof care history. Let's see. Just a minute. Phil Philip Etienne Lafosse. Oh, So I want to share this one thing I found interesting. Now, so I never read something once. I'll go back and read it over and over. And about the time I think I know it, and you're done with it, I'll go back and read it again and learn something new or find something else that adds to it. And so, just a minute here. New screen share. Where is screen share? A second. Screen share. So we're going to talk about this guy here a little bit. Okay, so Philip, I'm probably not pronouncing the name right. It's French. Philip Etienne Lafosse. Here we go. Okay, he was born in 1738 in Paris, France. Now, the first vet school in Paris, in France, opened up in like 1759. And a guy named Beaujolais was the guy that ran that school. Okay, so Philip Etienne Lafosse was born in Paris, France. He was the son of, it says he was a French veterinarian and the son of Etienne Guillaume Lafosse, a farrier. But see, the thing is here, this guy did not go to veterinary school. There were no veterinary schools. The farriers, who were called marshals, isn't that interesting? Marshals. The farriers that were called marshals were the vets. Okay. They were the ones responsible for whatever, for taking care of the horses, not just shoeing them, trimming them, but also taking care of all their medical needs. There were no such thing as veterinary schools as of yet. But then, because of some disease or whatever in cattle, France opened up some vet schools, and then, they turned to really studying the horse too, because after all, the horse is a big part of the economy, like cars and trucks are. See? So, and war. They're used for war. They're used for, national security and things like that. So, of course, the horse was a big deal in the veterinary schools in France as well. Now, while they opened up the first veterinary schools in about 1759 in France, they didn't open up the first veterinary school in England, in the UK, until 1793. And it had 3 students. And Bracy Clark was one of those students. He was one of the first vet students at the Royal Veterinary College in London that was started by the king. Now, the interesting thing is, it was the same king that was king when the Revolutionary War in America was going on. I just thought that was interesting. So this guy, people hadn't really done a lot of dissections and intricate study in anatomy. There was a few people here and there, but this guy really started doing some study in anatomy and of the horse. And he come up with the idea that a horse should walk on its frog. And so I'm going to show you a couple things here. So you can read about him there. Now, it doesn't tell too much about him there. So just a second here, because I got to look up a couple different things here. Now, here's an interesting site if you want to find old books. And by the way, Jamie Jackson has a book in print on here too. So I go up here to the search. Come on. And I'm going to look up Bracy Clark. So I want to show you what he said about Philip LaFosse. So Philip LaFosse was kind of a, he died in 1820. Okay. Bracy Clark wrote his book in like 1809, his first one. And then he did another edition of it a number of years later. This guy was a major writer. Now, his main focus was on the foot of the horse, but he wrote a lot of books on all other issues of horses and stuff like that too. But this guy was really an amazing man. So his main book was this one here. Let's see. Are you seeing this on your screen? Everybody? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so
Hipodonomia.
yes. The true
Hipodonomia.
Yes. The true structure, laws, and economy of the horse's foot. Okay, so you can get and read this book online. Now, these guys were scholars, I'm telling you. So if you're used to having things reduced to a text message, it's going to take some work. I'm just telling you that. All right. So
See the previous word, podofthora.
what?
That means there, podofthora. That means the damage of the foot.
The damage
The
of
word-
the foot. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And see
The
down.
worn out of the foot.
Okay. Now, see, he says the ruinous defect in the principle of the common shoe detected and demonstrated by experiments with a proposition for the, okay. So now here's the interesting thing. See, so these different barefooters, Jamie Jackson included, and a whole host of them, they will use this guy to the max to say that he was against shoes. Okay. And he wasn't against shoes. He was against the type of shoeing that was being done that forced frog pressure and low heels. He developed his own way of shoeing, and he had shoeing establishments in London, several. And so he studied the foot of the horse his whole life. It was his passion. And this guy was in the same position we are, like to a T. Okay. He saw that the powers that be, the experts, and the methods were killing horses. And he saw the main reason for it was because of low heels and frog pressure. In fact, there's somebody today on the group that even asked about that. There's a gal on there. She said she overheard her vet telling somebody else that you had to have constant frog pressure. And she said it just didn't sound, she wanted to know more about it. Didn't sound right. And so I just did a little ditty on there about that, how that's a false, what we would call a false doctrine, folks, because look, I know if I say the word doctrine, right away your mind goes to religion. There's no greater religion than this one. I'm telling you, these people, this is like a religion. The way people treat it, the way people act, you know, it's just crazy. But okay, the word doctrine is used in medicine, it's used in law. All it means, all it means is teaching. See, a teaching, a law, kind of a teaching that's a law, like that they consider the absolute truth and that they follow. And stuff. We don't hear that word used very much, but if you are in the legal profession, if you're studying to be a lawyer or a doctor, you'll hear it. Okay, but us, just as the peons of this world, the only time we might hear that is if we go to church, you know. And so, you know, if you go to church, they'll talk to you too about false doctrines, you know, about false beliefs. Well, they're in the area of hoof care when it comes to anatomy. There are what I would call false teachings, false doctrines, ideas that people came up with that were wrong back in the 1700s, but they got written in the hallowed halls of academia, and they stuck like glue. Because, man, once you write something in the hallowed hall of academia, you know, see, they may not believe that there's a God anymore. They may believe in evolution, but they think they themselves are pretty much gods. That anything that comes out of their mouth and gets written on a piece of paper and put in their school is the hallowed, all in all truth. And so then to change that, once it's been written down in a school, in a book, and published by somebody with a piled higher and deeper behind their name, is like pulling teeth out of an elephant, you know. So Bracy Clark, let's see, when did he publish his book? Let's see. Okay, so he was one of the first ones in the Royal Veterinary College. It started in 1793, one of the first graduates. Okay, this is now 1829. So he's been studying the foot of the horse probably before and after. So a good 35, 40 years at this time. Okay, so this is 1829. And so he says here, let me enlarge this. He says, I'll get it bigger here. He says, now this is his preface. You should always read the preface or introduction to a book, because then you find out why the book is written. Okay. He says about 7 years ago. So, okay, so this is 1829 when this is his second edition of this book. And so, so 1829, 1822. Oh my goodness, about 100 years ago. No way. This is about 200 years ago. Okay, so it's about 7 years ago, whilst pursuing some experiments on the contracted feet of horses. Now, we all know what contracted feet are, right? Where the heels are squeezed together. Okay, we still got that. It's not like it's something that disappeared. He says, about 7 years ago, whilst pursuing some experiments on contracted feet of horses, it occurred to me that the causes usually advanced. In other words, the explanation. Okay, so you go up to somebody, you go to a farrier, you go to a vet. Tell me, why do horses have contracted heels? Okay, they're the experts, right? They ought to know. So that he's doing the same thing we're doing. He's looking for answers for horses' feet. He says, while he was pursuing, he had been doing some experiments. I've been doing experiments now for quite a while, trying to restore my horse's feet from the bad trims that I learned from barefoot trimming. Okay. So it says, while pursuing some experiments on contracted feet of horses. So you know what he's trying to do, right? He's trying to uncontract them. It occurred to me that the causes usually advance to explain this serious imperfection were, let's see, let me enlarge that here so you can really see it. Where is it here? Okay, were what? Could anybody read that? Were not what?
Real.
Real. If something's not real, what does that mean?
False.
False. Yeah. Okay, what would be another word for real? How about true? Were not true. See? He's just trying to be diplomatic here. Because the people that explain these so-called causes are all those professional farriers. Okay, who, by the way, were thought of very highly. That'd be like your mechanic or your car salesman, you know, or your car expert. All right. And everybody's having the same engine problem. And you're going to every mechanic in town and they're telling you why you're having that problem, and come to find out that what they say ain't even true. And come to find out they're replacing your whole engine and everything like that, when in reality, all it was like an air hose was off or something. That happened to my son's car. He had this little, whatchamacallit, some little Toyota, and it wasn't running for nothing. And we thought it was going to have to get a new engine or something. We were at Walmart and the guy says, "Oh, this vacuum hose is off." He puts it on, car ran great. See? So if somebody would have said, "Oh, you need a new engine, or you need to replace this or do that," okay, then that wouldn't have been real, wouldn't have been true. Well, this is what Bracy Clark found out, that the reasons that they were given for why these horses had contracted heels were not true. So, just a minute here. Okay, and so not only did he find out that probably what he'd believed for a long time, because of the reasons given by the experts, was not real, was not true. He says, and that in fact, the accidents, carelessness, idle habits, and here we go, wanton tricks of the smith. Okay, meaning, what's a smith? That's their farriers. They were called smiths. In France, they were called marshals. Okay, so what happens? Farriers have accidents. What's one of the accidents they could have? Well, they could cut the foot of your horse too short. They could pierce it with a nail in the wrong spot. In fact, I found where there was a lawsuit that a guy had against a farrier for quickening his horse. That's what they call it, quicken him. When the nail goes into the foot instead of just out through the wall, and then your horse is lame. You know, back then, your horse was your life. That's why they hung horse thieves. Okay. And so there were many legal actions brought against farriers, against smiths. So he says, he finds out that the reason the smiths are given for why the heels are contracted aren't true to begin with. And that, in fact, the accidents, see, this is something everybody knew about. It was in the papers all the time. People were writing about this, getting screwed over by these people. It says that, in fact, the accidents, carelessness, idle habits, and wanton tricks, so there were many dishonest people too, of the smith so much inveighed against. Now, I had to look up that word. Invade. What does it mean? So much invade against. Invade means that you have written against somebody with a lot of anger and vehemence. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that. You know, you're angry. Angry writing, people angrily writing, like in the newspapers and stuff like that, against the farriers because they were doing all this stuff. Having accidents with your horse, they were careless, they had idle habits that hurt your horse, and literally had won tricks. Oh, why would that be? You come in with this is one thing that happened. You come in with a super expensive horse. He's got high bloodlines and you paid a lot of money for him. Well, you know, after about a year, he's going lame. You know, well, guess what? A lot of times what they do is they make him lame on purpose so they could buy him cheap. How about that? Pretty sneaky, huh? So, oh, well, it must be his diet or must be his genetics. You just got a genetically bad horse, mister, but I could take him off your hands. There you go. See, because there were a lot of times they were horse traders too. All right. You know, so it says so that the carelessness, idle habits, and wanton tricks of the Smiths, so much written against, had very little concern in its production. Even though people wrote about all this stuff that was going on, they did not go into the research of why so many horses had contracted heels. He says,
Linda,
yeah, what?
sorry. I have to make a question here.
Okay.
200 years after these words, when we meet a vet or a farrier today, he very seldom mentioned contracted heels. I mean, nobody talks about contracted heels, even if the problem 200 years after this is not resolved.
Yeah. Yeah, and lots of horses have contracted heels.
Yes, but no one mentioned it.
Well,
I mean, they talk about forward toe, they talk about frogs, they talk about bulbs, they talk about everything else, but they don't talk about contracted heels.
Or they mention the contracted heels, but they don't say what to do about it or do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you have 200 years old, the vet schools, the vet universities, the vet gods, if they know this problem, they should have resolved it.
You'd think so.
Yes, I hoped for it.
Yeah, nope.
And you are the first who tried in my world, my small world, horse world. You are the first who tried to see what can I do about the problem, which is 200 years old.
Well, if you read other books, people have tried over the centuries to do some things like one guy invented a shoe that had a hinge at the toe and then a screw thing in back and so you would screw it and gradually try and force the heels wider. You know, so
yes,
they
but this is not the resolution of the problem. Yeah. I mean, there is no university who came out, stand up and say, here we are, we resolved this horse problem.
Yeah, because they don't know the reason.
You're exactly right. I was going to say I can help out a little bit here because I am a veterinarian.
Okay.
And they do not teach anything more than even the most basic anatomy. There's no very, very little abnormal foot conformation and foot maladies that they teach in vet school. That kind of gets shoved over to the realm of the farrier.
Yep.
The vet works with the farrier, and then there's a big kind of a match between the farrier and the vet as to who really knows what's going on. And
yeah,
I tell you that nobody knows what's going on, not the vets and not the farriers. I think, Linda, you're the only one that has put your life's work into figuring out why this happens. Because
Exactly.
the veterinarians, they just go with what they know. Oh, you got sore feet, we'll give you bute, or maybe we'll nerve the foot if it gets really painful, or oh gosh, it must be navicular, we need a funny shaped shoe. They're
Yeah.
just treating a symptom and putting zero effort into the cause. And when you can find the rare veterinarian that cares about the horse and the cause, make sure and keep that one close to your heart, because you won't find another one like that probably in your lifetime. But just don't expect much from the others.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that about my colleagues, but I just try to speak the truth.
No, but it's true. That's why, did you know that recently, well, I don't know how recent it was, like 5-6 years ago, the Veterinary Association, they were going to vote again on whether farriers should be subject to the veterinary laws. Did you know about that?
No, I don't pay much attention to politics anywhere.
Okay, so there's like,
Yes, this happens in the reality, though.
yeah,
I mean, they always push or pull a vet together, and farriers, whenever they have to decide something, they have to take the okay from the vet.
yeah.
Well,
See, there's
Depends
like,
what you're doing, yeah.
there's this, you see, if you look at the history of it, like when I started talking to you about this, I told you, like, see, it's even wrong. Let me see here. Where is that I had Philip? Okay, where are you?
May I
Philip?
say something, Linda?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a group called Hoof Care for Goats group, and I'm teaching people a better way how to trim the goat's claws or hooves, whatever you want to call them. The proper term is claws. And I've been studying the inner anatomy, the outer anatomy, and I found a way to prevent those heels from being trimmed out, and I'm not nicking blood vessels like I used to. For years, those hooves has been trimmed out flat, and they
Uh-huh.
should not. They should have a
They should have
concave
some
and
heel too,
convex
huh?
sole.
Well, good.
Yeah,
Good. I'm glad you're making progress there. Now,
thank you.
you're welcome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, hon. See, studying is a good thing. Learning is a good thing. And so anyway, so this Philip Lafosse here, look where it says here, where it says he was a French veterinarian. Okay, so he actually wasn't. I mean, he was, but he wasn't. Because again, this is when the first veterinary schools came up. And he never actually went to one. And I'll show you how I learned that. Okay, so he was a farrier, and the farriers were the veterinarians. See, well, then the veterinary schools arose, and then they were in competition with, who did the people trust? They trusted the farriers, they trusted the marshals, they trusted, because they were the veterinarians. See, okay, not these upstarts coming out of this school over here. And so there was this competition type deal going. And so eventually what happened was, as the veterinary schools got bigger, and because the farriers also united and had guilds and stuff like that, they did this deal where, okay, the veterinarians got the rest of the horse, but the farriers got the feet. See, Lynn, now you know why that is. Now
That's
this is
the story.
yeah, and stuff, and so that's why over there in England you have the what is it called? The Worshipful Company of farriers, which is a combination of veterinarians and farriers, and it's a guild. Okay. And so they came more together there somewhat, but everywhere else it was like this, like kind of a peace treaty type deal. You know, fine, you work on the rest of the horse, but we got the feet and that's it. And so then there was a thing here in America 5-6 years ago where it come up, they were thinking about taking those feet away from the farriers. Okay, the vet schools and the American Veterinary whatever association, and they voted on it. And they voted to go ahead and let the farriers keep having the horse's feet because they saw where that could turn into a real problem, you know. And besides that, vets don't know that much about horses' feet. So, like you said. So, okay, but this was not the case in England and in France. Well, especially in England, because the very first veterinary school that opened up, the Royal Veterinary College in London, that opened up in 1793 was specifically about the horse. Okay, and the whole horse, but especially it wound up being about his feet. They really focused on the feet. And so, okay, so anyway, so see how that could be confusing. You think this guy's a vet, but he wasn't a vet that graduated from a school. He was just considered a veterinarian because all the farriers were considered veterinarians. Okay, but then the school opened, well, anyway, and then the ones that went to school became the veterinarians. But then again, they separated to where the veterinarians had the rest of the horse and the farriers had the feet. And so that's why you have this marriage, this weird, odd relationship between vets and farriers. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking around and I'm trying to find more information on this guy, you know, and I just happened to find, let's see here. I got to look at my Google Docs. Just a second. Google Docs. All right. Check your phone. Yes, it's me. Okay. All right. So, LaFosse. Okay, so I find this deal here. Take you to it. Okay, and this is the history. It's in French, unfortunately. Okay, this is the history of the life of Philippe Etienne Lafosse as it was read at a society of veterinarians like in 1850. So this would have been after Lafosse had died. And what I had to do was I had to, okay, because I don't know French, but I would like to get somebody that knows French, which Marcia Melax knows French. She's helped me with some of this. So what I did was I just copied it like this. And then I went to Google Translate and I put the whole thing in Google Translate and I got a translation, but it left a little bit to be desired on certain ways. And what I found out was really interesting. First of all, I found out he never went to that vet school. Okay. And that the guy that did run the vet school, who is also famous in these circles, his name was Beaujolais, that guy actually constantly slandered Lafosse and was constantly speaking against him, constantly slandering him. And that, and this is very interesting because the same thing happened to Bracy Clark, but not with Beaujolais, but with the guy that wound up being the head of the vet school at the College of London for 40 years. See, it wasn't the guy that started out as the head. That guy was a friend of Bracy Clark's. He really thought a lot of him. He died after 3 years. And then the king appointed this other guy, Edward, I can't think of his name right now. He appointed this other guy, and he was there for 40 years. And he constantly worked against Bracy Clark and Bracy Clark's research. And he was constantly trying to come up with what do you call it? Patents on shoes. All right. And so Bracy Clark couldn't figure out for many years why his research seemed to go nowhere and why he was treated badly. Well, years later, and you find this in the preface of his book, he finds out that this guy'd been subtly backbiting him for years and slandering him in that school for years and years. He finds this out in later life. And so I knew all about this. And so Bracy Clark mentions Lafosse in his book and his doctrine of frog pressure. But what I found out in this history of Lafosse here, as I translated it in Google Translate, was that Beaujolais, who was the head of that school, did the same thing here to Lafosse. The guy was always having the worst of luck due to what do you call that when somebody's constantly backbiting you and constantly trying to demean you and belittle your research? Oh, that's tact. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I know how that feels. And so it was just really interesting to read about his life here and the things that he went through. Now, he was alive during the French Revolution. And I don't know if you know, but it was dangerous to be, to pretty much be anything to anybody during the French Revolution, because if you were anything above the lower classes, they wanted to chop your head off with the guillotine. Okay, and so this guy was constantly getting falsely accused of stuff. And one of the things he got falsely accused of was giving a job to a, what do you call it? An illegal alien. I guess that was illegal during the French Revolution, right? And so he was sentenced to death. All right. He was supposed to go to the guillotine the next day. In fact, the guy that went to the guillotine before him was Robespierre. I don't know if any of you know anything about the French Revolution, but Robespierre was instrumental in getting the French Revolution going. And he chopped the heads off Marie Antoinette and King Louis and all these different people. But then he wound up being a real scumbag. And then they grabbed him and they chopped his head off. And so they had just chopped his head off the day before, and they were going to chop Lafosse's head off, but then something happened and he got a reprieve and he got out of it, which is, I just thought that part of it may not have nothing to do with horses' feet, but I thought it was pretty darn interesting, you know. Quit.
Linda, the name Beaujolais,
Little dog.
it's very famous today.
Okay,
because...
so anyway, so it was interesting reading this whole history of this guy. And let's see if I can show you something here. Okay, so here's something. So this guy was only 18 when he was teaching anatomy. It says here, his professional studies were barely completed because he had not, he was 18 years old. Just a minute. I need to find a drink or something. Just a second. Okay, so it says Lafosse was charged with demonstrating the anatomy from big horses to light horses. This course took place every Sunday in Versailles. You know where that is, right? You've heard of Versailles. That's where, those kings in France had that like major palace and stuff like that. You know, it says in the interval of these lessons, Lafosse gave another lesson at Paris in his father's house to marshals. Now remember, Marshall was a farrier. How weird is that? It says, this is perhaps the first teaching that came out of the anatomy. That word was not translated correctly, so I didn't know what it meant there. But anyway, um, anyway, the point I wanted to make about sharing this part is, what is this as having somebody who is just learning anatomy themselves teaching anatomy, because nobody knew anything about anatomy. Okay, and so anybody that did anything, and because his dad was a marshal and a veterinarian, because remember, there weren't any veterinarian schools, the farriers were the veterinarians. Okay, so that's why he got the job teaching anatomy. And so, to be dissecting, I can tell you that to be dissecting and trying to understand what you're looking at, and then you give interpretations to things. But guess what? Your interpretations may not be correct. And so here's this young man, and this would have been, okay, when was he born? Let's see here. When was he born? He's born in 1738. He's 18, 38, 48. So in around 46, in 46, that is, okay, if the first French vet school didn't open till 1859, right? So you got this 18-year-old kid in a position of teaching anatomy. And somehow he come up with the idea. If he didn't come up with it, he got it from somewhere else or something like that, that horses should walk on their frogs. Well, this belief got into the vet school when it came along. Okay. Now let me show you something that Bracy Clark wrote. Just a second here. I gotta find it in my photos. I had to look and make sure I was on. I guess somebody would have told me if they weren't hearing me. Let's see, pictures. I'm going to show you something Bracy Clark said about his studies and how he got deceived. Oh, gee, I hope we're not getting rain again. Let's see, Bracy Clark. Okay. Just a minute here, new share. Okay. So this is what Bracy Clark said. He said the eye soon gets accustomed to deformity and does not discover it. In other words, these feet are deformed, but you don't even know it. You think it's just the normal foot because you ain't never seen a real foot. You ain't never seen a truly good foot or knew that that was what the foot should look like. He says, so he says this error, it's an error. Understand? People have errors. Now, for sure, we would hope that nobody would purposely want to cut the heels out of a horse to cripple it, right? We would hope not. It says this error it was that embarrassed and misled me. Embarrassed and misled me. Just like me doing trimming from the top and trimming my horse into mechanical laminitis. And then because I had that YouTube channel, which I only had like 12 followers, okay, but they were into it. They were into trying it and doing it, okay. Well, then I find out that I harmed my horse doing that trim, rasping down the whole outer wall as a form of trimming. And so I thought it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to know that I had shared something as the truth that was not true. And so I thought, man, I'm just going to disappear. But then I thought, well, I can't do that to people. If they keep doing that, they're going to harm their horses too. So I had to come on. And of course, those videos are on there called Beware of Trimming from the Top. Okay. And I had to come on there and tell them and share with them how I had learned that and how it was harming my horse and it would harm their horse. And I thought, okay, I'm going to come on here. I'm going to share this and then I'll just disappear. Okay. But you know what? Those people, I thought these people are going to hate me. It was the exact opposite. Instead of hating me, they appreciated the fact that I learned I'd been doing something wrong and had the guts to come back and say. And why was that? Because I didn't want to hurt somebody else. So he says this error, in other words, he was seeing deformed feet and he thought he was seeing, the natural foot, the real foot. He says this error was that embarrassed and misled me. See, it will mislead you when you believe something the wrong way, when you think something is one way when it's not. He said this error it was that embarrassed me and misled me in all my first experiments on what I conceived to be what? The natural foot. The natural foot. You know what another name for the natural foot is? The real foot. The true foot. That is why his book, Hippodonamia, is called, it has that word true in the title. The true foot. See? The true foot. It says, now what is interesting about that is that before I ever heard of Bracy Clark or this book, I made a series of videos called Understanding the True Foot of the Horse. See, why did I call it Understanding the True Foot of the Horse? Because I was already seeing at that time that there was this error. I was finding the same exact thing he was. That the reasons they were given and the teachings they were given were not true. It wasn't adding up. So he says, this error it was that embarrassed and misled me in all my first experiments on what I conceived to be the true foot during several years and what does it say here? Completely obscured my views of the true nature. See, if you think a lie is the truth, if you think falsehood is the truth, see, if you think that you're looking at something and that's the way it's supposed to be, but in reality, that's not the way it is at all, then it will obscure your view. It will blind you as to what you are really seeing. That is what is happening in hoof care for last 200, well, ever since the vet schools opened. So he says, completely obscured my view as to the truth of these things. And my predecessors also, your predecessors, all the people that came before you, as the general tenor of their works will indicate. So he'd read everything that everybody wrote before him, and there was plenty of it. Okay, so I say here, nothing changed in 200 years. See? So Philip LaFosse come up with this idea that heels should be lowered. Now, when they first did these experiments, now again, you have to go to Never Blue Farm and read this article. We'll go over here. neverbluefarm.com. This is the website of Henry Hamerling, who was a International Hall of Fame farrier, and this guy was a scholar. Okay. So he's got his articles here, and he's got down here. I haven't read any of these, but other ones, but I'd like to. I just haven't had time. Right here, the proper hoof angle. Okay, everybody needs to read this. The Proper Hoof Angle by Henry Hamerling, RJF, CJF. This guy was a top scholar, a researcher. Okay, now he says, just a minute here, because I'm going somewhere. How do I enlarge this? Oh, there we go. Let's see. New share. Okay. So he says here, we're at Never Blue Farm, and the article is the research paper. It's not an article, it's a research paper. The proper hoof angle. And it should be called the proper heel height. Okay, because see, the higher the heels, the steeper the dorsal wall, usually, as long as the toe ain't flared out. He says, history says the earliest recorded advice on hoof angles comes from Simon of Athens, 430 BC, and Xenophon, 380 BC. Each insisted that there should be no contact between the frog and firm ground. Okay? Now, look at this. Just a second here. Just a second. Okay. Let me close this out. I'm looking for this. Okay. Okay. Let me enlarge this. Okay, can you see this post here? Come on. Close.
Yes.
Can you see this post here?
Uh-huh.
Anybody out there?
Yes, I overheard the
Oh.
conversation.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
How come I'm not hearing anybody? Oh, well, sorry.
We hear you.
What it was my my volume was was way down. Okay?
That would do it.
Okay, I just lost it. Where'd it go? Let's go down here. Okay, here we go. So Renee Burley, 5 hours ago, says, I overheard a conversation about frog needing to always have contact with the ground. This was a vet talking to a particular horse's owner. I can't make sense of it. Would love some clarity here. She says, I'm no village idiot, but sometimes when I think a certain way and hear something else, my brain hurts. Hey, I can understand that. Now, I just gave her a quick rundown, and then suggested she also read this article by Henry Hamerling. Okay? Okay, so here you see it. Now I gotta find that. Okay. So it says the earliest recorded advice on hoof angles comes from Simon of Athens. Make sure I'm on the right page here. 430 BC. And Xenophon, 380 BC. Now you would have to look up this man here to understand why you should listen to him. Okay, this man was a soldier. I think he was a general. But he was in the Greek cavalry. He came before Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great listened to what this man said. He gives advice on how to choose a war horse. Now, Alexander the Great took over the whole known civilized, uncivilized world around that area in a very, how many years was that, Angeliki? Is she there? In a very short period of time, and they did it on barefoot horses. And the only reason they could do it is because of cavalry. I have a book here. It's the history of the horse. Now, it's really interesting because in the very first part of that book, she talks about how those that could utilize horse flesh, all right, they overtook and conquered everybody that didn't have and couldn't use horses. See, why do you think Islam was so successful in conquering almost the whole Roman Empire and in changing all those Christian countries to Islamic countries? Because they rode those Arabian horses. I mean, they had a bad cavalry. And when I mean bad, I mean it was terrifying. Okay? The horse is what allowed them to do what they did. You know, how'd we take over America? By the horse. The horse has done everything to mankind. Whoever had the horse and had the horsepower, they're the ones that were in charge. So Xenophon said, each insisted there should be no contact between the frog and firm ground. Yet these same people that insist that you got to cut the heels down till the frog is on the ground, they'll mention this guy here. Only they won't tell you about what he says here. They'll only tell you, oh, he said you should put rocks in their paddock. Because see, let me tell you a secret. Okay, when these people found out that their barefoot trims did not work, then they started devising and making up excuses and looking for other reasons why these trims weren't working. Well, you don't have them in a natural enough environment. You need to haul in pea gravel. See, or you need to make, and look at this, nothing wrong with creating an environment, habitat where your horse is going to move around more. Okay, but that's not why that trim isn't working. See, I wonder what it costs to send a horse to a paddock paradise. See, did you know that they've created a deal where you can send your horse and pay them money to put your horse in the paddock paradise so he'll travel around and wear his hooves natural? And of course, this is after you've been had him barefoot trimming and he just ain't transitioned yet. See? So he says, the earliest recorded advice on hoof angles comes from Simon of Athens, 400 BC, and Xenophon, 380 BC. Each insisted that there should be no contract between the frog and firm ground. From Morgan's translation, 1893, Xenophon says, in buying a horse, the first thing you ought to look at are the feet, high ones, heels. Keep what is called the frog well off the ground, while horses with low hooves, low heels, walk with the hardest and softest part of the foot at once. You know why is that? Because the heels are trimmed out, so you got the sidewall on the ground with the bulb pulled down to the ground behind it, and they're walking on the softest part of their foot and the hardest together. Okay, it says, there is no change in this attitude for the next 2,000 years. Until the middle of the 18th century, all the well-known writers recommended a high hoof angle, meaning high heel, lots of heel. In 1556, Blundell recommends when trimming to remove more material from the toe than the heel. The heels are to be left strong. Smith wrote this in 1976. In 1585, some guy named Clifford that wrote on the feet says to pare the foot as little as possible at the heels. Now I want to ask you, what are they always doing? Who knows that people are always asking, do I trim down to live sole in the heels? Do I clean out the seed of the corn? See, they're always doing that. Why is that? Because as you do that, it gives you more room to take down more heel. See? Just a minute. Okay. Where I'm at. Okay. Okay. In 1585, Clifford says to pare the foot as little as possible at the heels, but to pare it well at the toes. In 1664, Solicel urges that the heels of the forefeet are not to be cut away, but left strong. Okay, then a guy named Bridges in 1752, although he said the horse with low heels is scarce fit for anything but the plow, may have been the first to say that hooves should could also be too upright. Those feet whereupon the hoof is upright and strong and the frog small will not, so contracted heels. That's what that would be. Okay, they wouldn't be good for whatever, being a war horse or whatever. Okay, so accepted angles change from high to low. Heel height changes from high to low, introducing frog pressure and expansion. Says, then something strange happened. Lafosse in 1754 broke with more than 2,000 years of tradition and experience by recommending a low hoof angle. Half moon shoes, also called tip shoes. Yeah, you know why they did that? Just put the shoes on the front so they could force frog pressure. And so you know what farriers are doing today? They're cutting the heels below the frog to make up for them putting a whole shoe on, because they got to make up for the thickness of the shoe so that they can still force the frog to have ground contact. I've got pictures of that. It's horrendous. So Lafosse's low angle and frog pressure theory met with some acceptance and some resistance. The master farriers of Paris, the Marshals, published a refutation of shoeing with short shoes and at a low angle, low heels. Okay, Osmer notes that when he tried Lafosse's methods on his own hunting horse, the horse became lame in both front legs the first time he rode him. Nonetheless, Osmer, see, what is it? People just don't learn. Nonetheless, Osmer also advocated a low hoof angle, low heels. Frog, because see, in order to get frog pressure, you have to trim the heels. So, and so what does that change? It changes the angle of the dorsal wall. Does anybody but me know about how farriers will be obsessed with hoof wall angle? You know, should it be like the pastern, or should it be with the shoulder, or, you know, they do all these different things. So the wall, the toe wall angle, okay, they're obsessed with that. And so it says, okay, where am I? Osmer notes that when he tried, let's read this again. Osmer notes that when he tried This is in 1758. Okay, remember, Lafosse started promoting this in 1754. So Osmer notes that when he tried Lafosse's methods on his own hunting horse, the horse became lame in both front legs the first time he rode him. Nonetheless, Osmer also advocated a low hoof angle, frog pressure, and short shoes, just not quite so low and short. And Lafosse's method spread. You see how it's like a venereal disease.
Linda,
You know,
see how
only, this is
everybody,
social intercourse. See, you know that the word intercourse means speaking, people speaking to one another, right? Well, do you know that ideas are like STDs? They're like a virus that somebody else catches. You tell somebody a lie, you tell somebody a falsehood, you tell somebody something that ain't true, even if you're thoroughly convinced it is, you don't even know you're lying. Well, they pick it up, and guess what they do? They spread it. See? So these ideas are like STDs. So it says socially transmitted disease, this time social media. See, because this has now gone absolutely bat crap crazy, this idea. Thanks to Jamie Jackson. Okay. So don't think he didn't know about this. All right. Okay. So anyway.
Linda.
So Lafosse method spread. In 1791, Sandbell, the first, here we go. Sandbell, the first head of the London Veterinary College. Now, Sandbell, okay, Bracy Clark was one of the first three veterinary students in this college. He studied under Sandbell. And he had a lot of respect for Sandbell because Sandbell died of some horrid disease that they felt was contagious. But Bracy Clark didn't care. He went in there anyway, and he made a death mask off of Sandbell's face. They did stuff like that in those days because they didn't have cameras to take pictures. So they would do death masks. And so Clark went in there, and so it goes to show you, he must have really thought a lot of this guy, you know, to do that. So Clark made a death mask off of his dead face. So, okay, so when Sandbell died, that's when they made this other guy the head of that veterinary school that did nothing but demean and slander and blackball Bracy Clark. Edward, I can't remember his name right this minute. And he was there for 40 years. And he promoted Lafosse's doctrine of frog pressure. Okay, so Sandbell, the first head of the London Veterinary College, followed Lafosse's thinking. Smith notes, so, you know, that means Bracy Clark would have also been doing that same thing. But he came to realize the error of it. It says, Smith notes, John Lawrence tells us Sandbell lamed, listen to this, Sandbell lamed many horses by lowering the heels too suddenly and committed other errors in shoeing. Lowering the heels too suddenly and committed other errors in shoeing. Oh, okay, here he is. Edward Coleman. After Sandbell died, Edward Coleman became the head of the London Veterinary College. Listen to this. From 1794 to 1839. Now, he had no experience with horses or shoeing. But he followed Sandbell. He followed Lafosse, both in position and in his theories. Coleman preached frog pressure and low hoof angle. Okay, so It was then, well, let's see. Okay, so he became the head of the college in 1794. Bracy Clark would have been there the 3 years before that. He had graduated around that time. And so I started this with so his book that I was showing you was 1829. 7 years before that was when he started coming to the realization that this whole frog pressure thing was a big phony bunch of garbage, was not true, not real. And so okay, again, he had no experience with horses or shoeing. He was appointed by the crazy king. Remember the king of the American Revolution, crazy King George. The Madness of King George. Anybody ever see that movie? It says he followed Sandbell both in position and theories. Coleman preached frog pressure and low hoof angle. Now, he talks about Bracy Clark here. And he did not really understand or know what Bracy Clark teaches. I can tell by what he said here. So, yes, Bracy Clark did follow Sandbell and Coleman. Okay, but then later he didn't, and I can show you this specifically in his book where he saw that it was error. I'll show you that here in just a second. In 1791, or wait a minute, Bracy Clark, 1809. Okay, so see, 1809. In 1809, he was still following these guys, the frog pressure deal. Even though he had read Xenophon and many other historical texts in favor of a higher hoof angle and no frog pressure, and even though he despised Coleman, still preferred the frog to make contact with the ground and therefore a low angle. With the two most influential writers on Ferry at the time, Coleman and Clark, promoting low angles and frog pressure, the ideas became firmly established. Okay, so anyway, it goes on in there. Now, here's where he doesn't realize how Bracy Clark changed his view. Let me show you here. So we're going to go to right here, the book. And now what's interesting about this book is that you can type in down here, you can type in, where is the, let me reduce this. Okay, right here. Okay, there's, okay, up here, search. I'm going to type in the word frog pressure. Now, see, the reason he despised Coleman is because he found out Coleman had been working against him the whole time. And that was because Coleman wanted to patent shoes. He wanted to make money off his knowledge. He wanted to be the head guy. Okay, so where are we at here? Here we go. Okay, this is on just a few pages from here. It says, and as to Lafosse, that's what he's saying over here. Let me enlarge it here. Hold on. No, it's not going to enlarge. Wait a second. Okay, so over here, here's where he mentions Lafosse in his preface. He says, and remember, Lafosse is dead. Or, well, maybe he wasn't dead yet. This is 1829. Yeah, he's dead by now. He died in 1820. All right. And as to Lafosse, if anyone will read him attentively, because remember, he wrote a lot on anatomy and things like that. If anyone will read him attentively and altogether, meaning you don't just pick out, cherry pick stuff he said to try and prove what you want to prove. You know that a lot of researchers do that, right? That's what the barefooters and people have done with Bracy Clark's book, and that's what they've done with Xenophon. They pick out a piece that agrees with what they're trying to promote. So that's why Bracy says, if anyone will read LaFosse attentively and all together, they will, I think, come to the conclusion that so far from borrowing from him, I have allowed him to know what he never really understood, or why did not his countrymen understand it before I published. See, the reason he's saying this because, oh, well, he doesn't know anything new. He's just borrowing from LaFosse. That's what they said about me too. Oh, nothing she does is new. She's just borrowing from Gene Overnick. She's just using other people's stuff and not giving them the credit. That's what they say about me. But the people that say it are people that came here, were intact, and then they wanted to make money off the information, and so they left and they started their own online charge out the Yang school. See, to take advantage of people. Okay, so he goes on to talk about this. He says, or why did not his countrymen understand it before I published and have practiced shoeing with a motion for the foot long ago? But it was the business of these colleges formerly to depreciate LaFosse, meaning, and see, I found that out too in the history of LaFosse, that the colleges were always condemning and talking LaFosse down until later, then they adopted and used his stuff. But the only thing they adopted was his doctrine of frog pressure. So he says, but it was the business of these colleges formerly to depreciate, LaFosse, till I praised him as making the only step that had been made, though a false one. So, in other words, these colleges would never adopt anything good, but then when something bad came along, like LaFosse's doctrine on frog pressure, well, then they gobbled that up. You come along with any truth to them and they reject it. But somebody comes along with something false that's all screwed up and, oh yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. That's what he's saying here. He says, for certain it is, here we go. For certain it is that by his false doctrine about frog pressure, he did a great deal of harm, and the effects of it are still felt by thousands of men and horses, both in England and in France at this day. So LaFosse, because of his doctrine of frog pressure, see now, you and I, okay, we know how this has harmed our horses, okay? But guess what? It was leading to where these horses, of which there was a lot, were only living out about half their lifespan. If you read this book, you will find that he talks about the immense suffering of animals due to this one doctrine. And so anyway, yeah, frog pressure. And so, yes, at first, yes, Bracy Clark did believe in frog pressure. But then, as the tenor of his work, if you will read him attentively and altogether, you will find that he came to understand that this was a false doctrine and he stopped using it. So they were growing heels. He was growing heels. All right. So, okay, so that's not the only place. He mentions frog pressure a lot. See here, frog pressure, frog pressure, frog pressure. So that was page, what page was that? That was page 19, or no, that was page, oh, page 13. Okay, he mentions again on page 19. What's he say here? He says, Lafosse many years ago in France advanced a fair step beyond such idle opinions as above by asserting, after anatomically considering the structure and functions of the foot, that this evil of tenderness proceeded from the elevation of the foot from the ground by the shoe and the consequent removal of the frog from pressure, which its situation in the foot appeared to him to demand. And in order to remove this difficulty, he strongly urged the use of a thin-heeled shoe, or what eventually became the half shoe, where they didn't have any shoe on the heel at all, and so you could lower the heels so that the foot would maintain ground contact with the frog. So, and now he talks about Coleman. Remember, he became his nemesis, always talking him down, always slandering him. So that Bracy couldn't understand. If you read his preface, he couldn't understand why he seemed to go nowhere. Well, it was because this guy was always constantly working against him, while at the same time the guy was always coming up. Well, he come up with a book on how to shoe. Remember, he initially took over the school, knew nothing about horses shoeing, nothing. Now all of a sudden he's an expert. And he comes up with a book about shoeing. He comes up with patents on shoes and selling shoes. See, there's money in it, people. There's money in it. And so you just see the wickedness in these people down through the ages. So anyway, this would be a good book to read. Again, he talks about these false doctrines of frog pressure. And see, he says it a lot in his book. Look there. And talks a lot about the frog as well and the importance of the frog. In fact, he named part of the frog. He named the frog stay. He also named the periopal band. All right, so anyway, so there's one more thing I want to show you about all this. Of course, we can only barely touch on this subject. But there's one more thing I really want to show you. Just a second here. Let's see if it's in here. Okay, so let me see if I'm on the right deal here. New share. Okay, I'm on the right. Okay. I gotta find the right spot. Just a second here. This is my study and history on Xenophon. Okay, right here. See this right here? This is something I've used a lot because I studied the Bible. So I studied the New Testament was written in Greek. So I had this site I used to always visit to learn about Greek words. And it's Tufts University Greek project called the Perseus Project. Now, I have been looking up and learn about Greek words from this site for a very long time. And then I just happened to find their article on Xenophon, on the heart of horsemanship, and a good translation of exactly what he said. And what I found interesting about it was how nobody fully quoted him, not even Henry Hamerling. Nobody fully quotes that guy. And so so seeing this, I saw something really interesting. I'm going to show you something really interesting here. Okay, so we're going to read exactly from here what Xenophon said. So we're going to go to, no, well, I hope I can go to that site. Okay, so this is Tufts University site itself. Okay, and so so this is what Xenophon actually said. This is the full translation of what he said. He said, when testing the feet, let me make that bigger. Just a minute here. When testing the feet, first look to the hooves, for it makes a great difference in the quality of the feet if they are thick rather than thin. I'm going to tell you something. When I trimmed the heels out of my horse's feet, his walls got really thin. When I restored the heels, the walls got really thick, including in the quarters. He says, next, you must not fail to notice whether the hooves are high, both in front and behind, or low. Meaning the hairline. The hairline. See? For high hooves, meaning the heels are high, you have a high hairline. For high hooves, have the frog, as it is called, well off the ground. But flat hooves or low hooves with a low angle, low hairline, low heels, tread with the strongest and weakest part of the foot simultaneously, like a bow-legged man. Moreover, Simon says that the ring too is a clear test of good feet, and he is right, for hollow hooves ring like cymbals in striking the ground. Anyway, so I found this and I read it a number of times, but it wasn't until I learned about Lafosse and about he never went to the vet school, even though they called him a veterinarian, he never went to the vet school there in France, that school was started and run by this guy named M. Bourgelat. Right here. Just a minute here. Okay, right here. This dude here. Okay, Claude Bourgelat. The T is, French sounding. All right. Claude Bourgelat, 1712 to 1779, was a French veterinary surgeon. He was the founder of scientifically informed veterinary medicine. He created the world's first 2 veterinary schools for professional training. Bourgelat was born at Lyon. He initially studied law. Yeah, he was a lawyer. And he started the veterinary academy. Okay. At age 28, he became the head of the Lyon Academy of Horsemanship as an amateur horseman. And anyway, I'm not going to read all of it, but he became the head of the first veterinary schools. And that guy hated Lafosse. That guy did everything, the same kind of stuff to Lafosse that Edward Coleman did to Bracy Clark. I told you about that history I found. That history, that French history that I translated, it constantly talked about how Bourgelat constantly demeaned and tried to basically destroy Lafosse. Now, why? We don't know, because he also believed, here, get this. Just wait till you see this. Where we're at here. Okay. Now, I got to find, just a minute. I just lost that deal I had. Oh, here we go. Okay. We're back at Tufts, where it has that translation of what Xenophon said about the foot of the horse, right? So I'm looking at this, okay? And I was seeing this deal, just a minute here. Okay, like, sometimes you got to read the footnotes. Okay, notice like here, there's a number 1. Then you go down here. Oh, well, how about that? It's M. Bourgelat. And it says this, just a second. Okay, so it says this. I mean, talk about intrigue, right? So what they're given a footnote here, to what this Bourgeois says about Xenophon. He says in his preface to the second volume of Les Emines Hippotatris, it's probably French for something about the horse, he reprehends this remark. He criticizes this remark as wrong. He is saying that what Xenophon said about heel height is wrong. It says he reprehends this mark as trifling and false. He says that what Xenophon said about heels is false. And it says, and so the person making this remark and writing this here says, and if our author is to be understood literally, the criticism is certainly just. Yet, this other guy says, yet it is unlikely that Simon and Xenophon were both mistaken. So, in other words, if Bourgeois was right, see, because Bourgeois believed in low heels. So he is criticizing these two guys that actually were in the Greek cavalry. Xenophon was like a general. He was like a hero in Greece. He like saved 10,000 soldiers from annihilation. I mean, you ought to read the history of the guy. He was absolutely amazing. And if you look at all the Greek statues and the friezes and the reliefs and stuff, you find that all the horses had ample heel, that they were high in front and high behind. And so now you have this guy here, a lawyer, all right? And there's just, okay, no offense, if anybody's related to a lawyer or not, but they have a bad rep, right? Like, how do you know a lawyer's lying? Well, their lips are moving. Okay, well, that's what you got here. So this guy, he adopted the low heel, constant frog pressure of Lafosse while demeaning, belittling, blackballing, and slandering Lafosse the whole time. Okay, and gee, I know people just like this. I'm not kidding you. Okay, and then so when he is writing his book, he says what Xenophon and Simon said are false, trifling and false. This weasel of a lawyer. See? And so, it says, I'm going to read again. He says in the preface to his second volume of whatever this book is he wrote, probably on horseshoeing, he reprehends this remark as trifling and false. Okay, and if our author is to be understood literally, the criticism is certainly just. However, yet it is unlikely that Simon and Xenophon were both mistaken. Who's mistaken here? It's this guy. Okay, so I just thought, well, I don't know if anybody else finds this interesting, but I find it highly interesting how all this stuff starts tying together to this great, big, massive deception and error that is in the veterinary and the farrier fields that have been killing horses for centuries. And then Jamie Jackson comes along, says he's been studying wild horse feet, doesn't have one picture of any of the horse's feet that he supposedly measured, but instead uses the rear feet off of one dead wild horse that was given to him by BLM that had no heels whatsoever, and says that all wild horses have the same foot. And consequently, now that teaching is going around to everybody. And let me tell you what the worst part is. Besides the fact that horses are suffering and dying all over the gosh dang world now, and that is the fact that, hey, it was bad enough when we had the experts laying, maiming, torturing, and killing our horses. But now we can take a clinic. We can take an online class to where we can learn to kill and torture our horses on our very own selves. Isn't that just special? So anyway, yeah, I always tell a story about this one gal who had to have 2 horses put down because of these trims. And she says to me, she says, you know, when I think about what I did to my horses, I want to slip my wrist. Bracy Clark said that this had caused intense suffering and damage to not only countless horses, but men as well. How many people have died? You know that I wonder, see, we don't hear about that many people fall, their horses following, tripping. You know what happens when a horse trips? A person can fall off and die. Yeah. So I wonder how many people, only God himself knows, how many people, not only horses, have had to be put down because of these experts, okay, but how many people have died or been seriously hurt, harmed, injured due to horses that fall or trip, due to the way their feet are being trimmed. Okay, so anyway, that's our history lesson for today. So this is what we're fighting, 250 some years of error that has been made worse from the hoof scare movement, the barefoot hoof scare movement. And so anyway, all right, well, okay, so now we will move on to, so sorry to take so long in doing that, you know, but I did want to share that. I think it's important that people know it, where all this bad teaching came from and how it's historical error carried on from one generation to the next. And wicked people too. Wicked people who just wanted to make money, didn't give a darn hoot about the truth. You know, I'm sure that Bourgeois slandered LaFosse because he thought, he wanted everybody to think that was his idea, probably. This stuff happens to people all the time. Okay. Any comments?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Okay, so my first comment is this.
All right, well, let's go and start. Let's see. Okay, so
Linda, you're not hearing us again.
Hi, Megan. I see you there. Let's see.
Linda, you have
Okay,
lower.
so we're going to end this.
Ladies, I don't think Linda can hear us at all.
This.
Well, maybe we can send her a note.
Start another one where
yeah, I'll send her a message. I feel